So many of you who were here yesterday heard a little bit about the Annotating All Knowledge Coalition in either the working group or in my brief summary. And for those of you who are in the working group, this will be review, but hopefully this will be new for those who were not. So what is the coalition? The coalition is a growing group of publishers, platforms, libraries, standards bodies, technology groups, basically anybody that shares a common interest in bringing interoperable annotation capability across scholarly content, and this is very much focused on scholarly content, to benefit essentially mankind, anybody who really requires this type of work. The vision, it's got an ambitious timeline of 3 years that say most scholarly works, we saw some examples of this before, should actually come with a native capability to annotate, but it should be an open, interoperable, web-based ability to annotate so that all of the things that we've been talking about in this room are made possible. And essentially, we would be able to share annotations, but also discover annotations that others may have made on the same work in different contexts, because certainly that is one of the qualities of scholarly works. They exist in many forms across many different platforms, but it's a version of the same work or the same work. And it'll be open source, federated, and based on open standards, just like the web. So what is an interoperable annotation capability? The metaphor for me as a non-technology person that kind of made it, oh, I get what you mean, was that annotation should work like email or web pages. That is, you have this thing, your email and your web page, and you can use multiple clients and multiple servers in which to get it. So it doesn't matter which one you use, it's a matter of preference. They both all have the same core set of features. There's some basic agreement. Some of them have more bells and whistles, some of them are specialized, but basically, you know, there is a core to them, and they all kind of have that same set of features, so you know how it works. And this is just sort of a mock-up, a small mock-up of what it might look like. We heard some examples before, where if you went to a web page where there were annotations, it would let you know that there are annotations coming from these different sources, and you would be able to consume them and look at them and make use of them from any client that you choose. So why is it that scholarship in particular is focusing on interoperability annotations? And again, I don't think I need to say this because we heard so many examples just from the previous set of talks. But in scholarship, again, we have this idea that there is the same work. So interoperability also sort of carries the fact that the same work may go through multiple stages. So for example, during production of a manuscript, you may work on that same manuscript across different phases into the publication form. So you would want to be able to share those annotations as the work made its way through, and this was a common use case. People obviously, again, want to be able to create corpuses of works and scholarly works to be annotated. They may come from different publishers. Some of them may be ebooks, some of them may be in other forms. You may want to choose the form that you want, but because it's the same work, you want to be able to sync those annotations, and you don't want to have to negotiate separately, right, with every provider on how one uses a client to annotate and figure out how to share them, right? So this is sort of an open layer. And again, there are these various use cases that people indicate, but the essence of it is that we want the annotations to be able to anchor to the content regardless of the form, and we want annotations to sort of work the same and be consumable across these multiple contexts. So who are the current members? We have over 60 of them, and you can go to the site and you can see they span the sciences and the humanities, technologists, libraries, basically all of the current stakeholders in scholarly communications. It is open for everybody to join, and I hope many people here will join and bring their organizations along. So what is it that members agree to? Essentially, it's a 4-point ask, and it's fairly lightweight in the sense that, one, you share a vision for how this can benefit scholarship, so that we all agree that this is a necessary piece for scholarship, that you'll explore how to incorporate these open web annotations into whatever it is that you have to offer. So is it a platform, a course, whatever it is that you do. That we will collaborate openly when we do this. So your logo is free to be shared, the use cases and examples that you do, the pilot projects, you share that experience so that we can start to build this capability from real use cases. And again, that your participation in this is open. So this is not something where one is doing this in top secret, right, in order to create something proprietary. The whole point is we agree that an annotation, because of its very nature, which goes between a work and something or someone doing the annotation, is meant to be a shareable layer and not something that is locked into any given platform. The principles that we espouse are, again, that this be open source, standards-based, no surprise here, that key formats obviously need to be supported for this to be able to work. You're not locking people into anything. Interoperability, and I think apropos of the last sets of discussions, that the basic premise of how this works is that there is a clean page, that this is a layer that goes on top, that you may take that layer off and other people may put other layers on top of it. So it is essentially something where if you do not wish to look at annotations, you do not have to look at annotations, because as we've heard, there's many reasons why one may not want to, and those are fair. There's a fairly ambitious timeline that has been laid out for it. So again, at various times it was 5 years, 3 years, but why not, be ambitious and aspirational. So year 1 is dedicated to designing and building, year 2 to deployment, and year 3 to basically marketing, because if we have no annotations to share and we have no uses for this annotation, then of course it becomes a lot less fun and useful. So what have we done to date? The coalition was actually launched with 40 members in December 2015. Dan Whaley of Hypothes.is was, I think, the driving force behind this, recognizing again that the more annotations they are, the more we all benefit, the more it becomes a standard practice, and that we really do need broad participation across all of these different platforms in order for this to be successful, and web annotation in general to be successful. A steering committee was formed in January, and when you see the names in the next slide, you can look, because several of the people sitting in this audience are on the steering committee. A survey went out to members to ask them, what is it that you need? Why did you sign up to this? Why was this a compelling vision? What do you need to really start to bring annotation into the mainstream? We're using the Force 11 platform, Future of Research Communications and eScholarship. They have a community platform where we could form working groups, discussion forums, and what have you, so we're using that as a way to organize members and share communications at this point. We probably will be moving off, but it was a good way to get started. And at the recent Force meeting, we had a kickoff face-to-face meeting in Portland on April 17th. And there, I'll go through what the results were in just a moment. So all of the materials and things are available for the Force 11 site, and I've linked these slides with all of the hyperlinks in it into the meeting notes for this session, so you can get to those if you're interested. So here's our august steering committee. As you can see, it's a mixture of commercial, academic. The publishers are there, the libraries are there, preprint servers are there. Again, this is open to any stakeholder, any organization, large or small. If you espouse these principles and want to work towards this in the spirit in which the coalition is formed, you are welcome to join. And there is contact information on the website, and I provided at the end of these slides as well. So the kickoff meeting, this was the first time where we had more than 70 people coming together to really start to explore what this meant. And there were 2 desired outcomes. One was to be able to converge on a definition of interoperable. We noticed we say converge. We didn't think we would get one. But what does it really mean to have an interoperable annotation? What is in scope? What is out of scope? Because clearly one could expand this definition really, really far, as we did yesterday in our discussion group. But it's really important that we converge on the core, that we determine what use cases are in scope and identify the next steps. And as I will repeat over and over again, it is quite clear that at this point, and we've heard this at this meeting, the next steps are just to roll up your sleeves and do it, right? And we'll talk about that in just a moment. So for interoperability, we have a list of a set of features that the technical group said these things should be considered in a converging definition. I thought it was interesting, though, that they produced a list of what's currently missing. And there, again, this idea that you can't tell what annotations are on that page unless you have the client installed that reads it is certainly one of them, and it has to have been done by that. That we don't have a whole lot of different clients that support the basic functionality. We hear about some of them here, but a lot of them, again, are nascent and in development. Certainly no portability across hosting. And one of the most interesting things, I think, was this persistence of user and document identity across different systems, because that quite is clearly both understanding that this is the same user in different contexts for academic purposes, and also that the documents that you are annotating, regardless of the context in which you read them, are in fact the same documents. The system needs to have that in order to be able to work. So a technical implementation group was formed with Nick Stenning of Hypothes and Rob Sanderson, and they're using the W3C community group for discussions, and I invite you all to join in that group for that. A lot of work was spent on coalition members talking about use cases and user stories. And the outcomes, which I think were quite powerful, is that coalition members agreed to freely share these user stories and experiences. There were no overarching use cases, but there were smaller use cases where people had annotations and they were going to say, yes, let's actually look at how something like this would work. We've all agreed to increase awareness and understanding of web annotation and discuss various strategies to increase the number of annotations and annotators. So what are the next steps? We are going to create a dedicated web portal for annotating all knowledge. Right now it's hosted on Hypothes.is, and we're quite clear that this is not Hypothes, but it's the whole group of people interested in this. This will be a place where the things that were requested, sharing user stories, will be done. Refine the set of features into shared definition of interoperability, establish the technical specifications working group, share experiences on usability and user analysis, because web annotation confuses people and there's many ways to go. We want to have a place where we can benefit from every experience we've had. And then, as I said, just do it. We have active pilots to share annotations. There was some real, I think, realization here that even though we often focus on this very complex cross-platform, that at least in the biomedical sphere, where we now have several clients that are all annotating the same literature, it would in fact be quite useful, for example, all the biomedical annotations done on papers in PubMed Central, for them to be able to consume it into SciLight and vice versa. So I think that these activities are now getting launched, and understanding, this basic definition of interoperability will now be done using, well, what exactly does it mean for me to consume? How does it display? What is the architecture that's needed for that, so that the technical group can get on with it? So I hope you will all join us in creating an interoperable annotated future, and that is it.